Good evening, I'm Robbie Alampay. The big stories tonight. The Health Department has confirmed the local transmission of the British variant of COVID-19 in Bontoc. They are tracing the spread to a returning Filipino from the United Kingdom, but here's the catch, he is negative for the more infectious variant. Following the spread of the British variant, President Duterte has reversed an IATF policy which would have allowed minors aged 10 and above to go outside. The palace is denying that the president is flip-flopping on quarantine protocols. 12 pig carcasses were washed ashore in Oriental Mindoro, stoking fears of African swine fever infection. The Agriculture Department is considering the country to be under a state of calamity as ASF continues to impact supplies. With travel restrictions in place to curb the spread of the British variant of COVID-19, the country's plans to host the FIBA Asia Cup Qualifiers next month gets called off. And a new face will grace your TV screen here on One News and TV5. Former volleyball player turned TV host Gretchen Ho is now a kapatid, and she's set to join us very soon here on The Big Story. Let's start with the Health Department confirming the local transmission of COVID-19's British variant in Bontoc. The DOH is pointing to a returning Filipino from the UK as the source of the spread. But how can that be when he is actually negative for the UK variant? Greg Gregorio with the big story.
It's official. There's now a local transmission of the more contagious COVID variant in Bontoc. The Health Department confirmed this after 12 cases were reported in the municipality. The Health Department links the infections to a male resident who came from the United Kingdom. He and his wife arrived in Manila on December 11. They immediately took a swab test and were placed in isolation. After testing negative, the couple went to Bontoc on December 13. During the holidays, the two attended several gatherings and even went to Sagada. But on December 27, the husband experienced abdominal pain. He and his wife immediately went to the hospital to have another swab test. He tested positive for COVID-19 on December 29, while his wife remained negative. But here's the baffling bit. The husband tested negative for the UK variant. How then can the 12 individuals in Bontoc contract it? The Health Department can't make any conclusion just yet.
Yun ang inaalam natin ngayon. Ang ginagawa ng ating LGU at ng RESU ay, aside from this traveler from UK and his wife, sino-sino pa ba yung mga naging nagpunta doon?
Of the 144 close contacts of the 12 UK variant cases, 34 were positive for COVID-19. 6 are already negative for the more infectious variant. The samples of the 28, meanwhile, are still subject to gene sequencing. The Octa research team had earlier forecast that the country already has undetected UK variant cases.
We did see a very rapid increase in number of cases in Mountain Province. Again, 2 weeks ago, they were just averaging 2 cases per day. Now they're averaging around 40 per day.
The team also notes similar patterns in Cebu and Iloilo, but it remains to be seen if this is due to the UK variant. The DOH says it's conducting a biosurveillance across the country. The agency is also doing intensive contact tracing on the close contacts of the 2 overseas Filipinos from Lebanon who tested positive for the UK variant. One was found in Leon, Iloilo, while verification is underway for the other who was reported to be from Binangon and Rizal. They arrived in Manila on December 29 via flight PR8661. More than 300 passengers and crew of the said flight have already been identified. 4 are positive for COVID-19. The 228 who came out negative will undergo another swab test. The UK variant case in La Trinidad, Benguet, meanwhile, has already recovered last Saturday, but the patient remains in isolation for further testing. As for the one in Calamba, Laguna, investigation is ongoing. The DOH asserts on the chiefs there's still no community transmission of the UK variant.
The cases in Bontoc, yes, we are confirming that there is local transmission, but let us try to differentiate with community transmission.
Okay.
Community transmission is that case or status wherein you wouldn't find any linkage anymore, or you wouldn't find the sources of infection anymore in the community.
For News 5, Greg Gregorio, we are One News.
The palace is refusing to call as flip-flopping President Duterte's decision to overturn the IATF policy on age restrictions. In a pre-recorded speech Monday evening, the president rejected the IATF policy that would have allowed those above the age of 10 to go outside. The president said this is a precaution for the new variant of COVID-19. The IATF expected the new protocol to spur economic activity. As for Metro Manila's quarantine status, Cabinet Secretary and IATF co-chairperson Carlo Nograles says they have yet to decide if the NCR will be placed under MGCQ by next month. In an interview with 1PH sa Totoo Lang, Nograles said they will factor in the region's average daily growth rate, positivity rate, and healthcare utilization, among other factors.
Idadaan ng mga experts natin dyan sa computer program para makita kung ano yung i-recommend nila.
The Senate is set to tackle the proposal for an economic chat-chat tomorrow, but it seems House leaders have yet to iron out their position on how to best approach this controversial move. Politics aside, economic managers do support relaxing economic provisions. They say it would be an added boost to the pandemic-battered economy. Ria Fernandez has the report.
The House Committee on Constitutional Amendments is already on its second hearing on charter change. They're using House Speaker Lord Alan Velasco's resolution of both Houses number 2 as reference. But some lawmakers have yet to agree on which route to take in tackling the controversial proposal, especially now that the upper chamber is set to begin their own talks on Chacha starting tomorrow.
Hindi po ba it's very prudent na ang liderato ng komiting ito at o ng liderato ng kapulungan ito ay makipagtalastasan, no? Magkaroon ng pagkipag-usap sa ating mga counterparts sa Senate.
But Committee Chairman Alfredo Garbin Jr. says they have settled the matter.
Saying that Congress, specifically the House of Representatives, can proceed amending our Constitution, proposing amendments to our Constitution via the route of a legislation.
Yes.
Garbin is taking on a different tone. Unlike in the past, he no longer insists that the panel functions as a constituent assembly. Instead, he says Congress is only exercising its legislative and constituent powers. But Deputy Speaker Dante Marcoleta asks, are they even crafting any measure? He says the panel is purely exercising its constituent power.
Kasi ang sabi nila, we are just component elements of a constituent assembly. So we are not legislating. That is the exact term there.
We cannot decide right now whether we will
Mr. Chair,
I'm not saying that we are deciding now,
or
Mr. Chair.
jointly.
But if it were up to Congressman Fredinil Castro, Chacha talk should be done at the plenary to avoid redundant discussions.
I am sure that all questions that will have to be asked in this committee will still be the same question and argument that could be preferred or will be preferred in the plenary session.
While lawmakers clash, economic managers are in agreement. They support easing economic provisions to push growth and improve public services. Finance Secretary Sonny Dominguez says another option is to immediately enact measures such as create and amend the Foreign Investment and Public Services Acts.
The international community perceives us as the most restrictive economy in the ASEAN. So once they take a look at that, maybe they won't even take a second look at us.
For Albay Representative Joey Salceda, these measures should be complemented by charter change in order for the country to reap more benefits. But a vice chair of the defense panel, Muntinlupa Representative Rufi Biazon, says the Defense Department should be authorized first to identify strategic areas to be opened up to investors. For News 5, Ria Fernandez, We Are One News.
And here are the big stories on print and online. President Duterte has given the go signal for limited face-to-face classes to resume in medicine and allied health programs. Quoting the Commission on Higher Education, the PhilStar is reporting that the recommendation covers GCQ and MGCQ areas. Palace spokesman Harry Roque says would-be doctors and medical personnel need to continue their physical training in the middle of the pandemic. From Business World, the Manila International Airport Authority has shut the door on Megawide's proposal to rehabilitate NAIA. Airport authorities junked the appeal of Megawide and their foreign partner, GMR Infrastructure, to regain their original proponent status for the 109 billion peso project. Megawide says they respect government's decision and that they are ready to move on to other projects. And vaccine czar Carlito Galvez is lauding Pasig City's vaccination plan, branding it as a model city for other LGUs. News 5 is reporting some 190,000 individuals are included in the city's master list for vaccination, which would prioritize frontliners and other high-risk individuals. Mayor Vico Soto says vaccination teams and sites, which will include schools and hospitals, are already prepared. We'll take another break when the big story returns. Not only is the country in need of COVID-19 vaccines, it's also in need of shots against African swine fever. And to those asking where the 15 billion pesos is allegedly pocketed by PhilHealth officials are, the state insurance chief says most of it has been liquidated. The details next. Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. Aside from the pandemic, the country is facing yet another calamity, the worsening impact of African swine fever. And very much like COVID-19, the government is eyeing to use vaccines to stop the outbreak. But where will it come from? Shaila Francisco tells us.
More than 12 pig carcasses all washed ashore. This is what shocked residents in Nawan Oriental, Mindoro and nearby towns over the weekend. Test results are still pending if the animals are infected with the African swine fever. The Agriculture Department says disposing pigs in waters is allowed, but they must be split in two and dumped at least 12 nautical miles from land. In their initial investigation, the DA says the vessel which made the disposal came from Iloilo.
Titingnan po natin lahat yan, kung ano po yung mga na-violate nila ron, hindi nila nasunod, at ano yung measures that can be brought up against them.
The local government opposed the dumping of dead pigs. Should the carcasses be infected with ASF, they say local livelihood might be affected as most residents are backyard hog raisers. The town is still ASF-free.
Naman lang, ito may koordinasyon sa ating mga otoridad, sa aming mga mayor, para mabigyan ng warning yung aming mga barangays.
Over in Leyte, the first case of ASF was recorded in Abuyog town 2 weeks ago. But the DA Eastern Visayas says it has also spread to two nearby towns, Javier and La Paz. In a span of 2 weeks, more than 1,600 pigs have been culled from these three towns. Industry estimates expect that more than 4 million out of 12.8 million hogs in the Philippines have been affected by ASF. But the DA says the number of culled pigs is only around 500,000. The DA now considers the country to be under a state of calamity as ASF continues to affect pork supply and prices.
There is basis for a price ceiling towards price freeze is the African swine fever calamity. Yun ang pananaw ng Department of Agriculture kasi wala pang bakuna.
The DA is also set to talk with Vietnam regarding the ASF vaccine.
Kung available na ito ay mag-trial na rin tayo sa bansa at ganun din dito sa Vietnam. We are now touching base with the Ministry of Agriculture and Food sa Vietnam para agad-agad ay ma-trial at magamit na in a big way yung bakuna.
The Agriculture Department will also mass-produce ASF test kits starting next month to monitor the disease. Shaila Francisco, VR 1 News.
For Bayan Muna, Representative Carlos Duterte, a price freeze on agricultural and meat products may not be necessary. Instead, he is proposing that government directly purchase farmers' produce and then let local governments sell them at a subsidized rate. The House Deputy Minority Leader adds that the Quick Response Fund amounting to more than 6 billion pesos could be tapped to help farmers and consumers. President Duterte is expected to sign an executive order placing a cap on pork and other food products. To LRT commuters, some good news. The Transportation Department has unveiled the first batch of the fourth-generation LRT-1 trains from Spain and Mexico. 2 new stations are also expected to partially operate within the year. Gerard de la Peña with the details.
PWD-friendly and energy efficient. These are the 4 new LRT-1 trains to be used for the railway's Cavite extension. The fourth-generation trains came from Spain and Mexico. Sponsored by the Japan International Cooperation Agency, 120 trains like these are up for delivery by 2022. They will form 34 train sets, which can carry up to 750,000 passengers daily. It will bring LRT-1's train fleet to 192 coaches. It also has safety and special features.
Yung speed natin as merong variable speed tayo na tinatawag na magko-contribute doon sa mas mabilis at mas ligtas na pagpapatakbo ng mga tren.
The public may use the new trains by July.
Kanilang commute araw-araw ay gaganda at sasarap, no? Bago yung bagon po natin, napaka-safe. Yun po yung binibigay po namin sa ating mga pasahero, isang safe tsaka efficient na journey.
Light Rail Manila Corporation reports that the Cavite extension is already half completed. The Transportation Department wants 2 additional stations to partially operate within the year. Board piling works are still ongoing at the Redemptorist and City of Dreams stations in Parañaque. That of the station close to the NAIA Terminal 1, meanwhile, is just about to be done. Laying out foundation on what would become Dr. A. Santos or Sukat Station has already been completed. Pie girders on various areas are also in place. As for the LRMC's petition for a fare hike, the DOTR says the company will have to wait.
Pag gumanda yung serbisyo, naging happy yung tao, then you have created the environment na magtaas ng presyo or pamasahe or plete. Pero hanggang hindi nangyayari yan, kung maaari, ayaw ko.
For News 5, Gerard de la Peña, We Are One News.
And these are the other big stories tonight. The 15 billion pesos allegedly pocketed by the state insurers officials, as it turns out, are not missing. Most of it have already been liquidated. PhilHealth Chief Dante Giran says 92% or about 13.8 billion pesos of that money have been liquidated following orders from the House and the Senate. In a briefing today, Giran said 13 officials have already been suspended due to irregularities. A priest was gunned down near a monastery in Bukidnon on Sunday. Father Rene Regalado sustained bullet wounds to the head. Initial investigation also showed that he had a contusion near his left eye and his left hand was tied with a shoelace. He is the 4th priest to be killed since 2017. President Duterte has appointed Court of Appeals Justice Joseph Lopez to the Supreme Court. The new SC Associate Justice is taking over the seat of former SC Justice Priscilla Baltasar Padilla, who sought early retirement in November 2020. Lopez is seen to serve the tribunal for the next 12 years. We'll go for a quick break. When the big story returns. As travel bans are still in place, the country has canceled its hosting of the FIBA Asia Cup Qualifiers next month. and find out which projects are in store for TV host Gretchen Ho as she embarks on a new journey with TV5 and Signal. The details coming up. Good evening, I'm Robbie Alampay. You're still watching The Big Story. It is crunch time now for the Commission on Elections as the 2022 polls near. But their first order of business, boosting voter registration, which has so far churned out dismal figures. Why is that? Romel Lopez tells us.
In previous years, this COMELEC office in Manila would be filled with new voters processing their registration. But now, it's nearly empty. A local election officer says they only average 30 registrations per day, way below their capacity.
On the average, 30 persons a day. Mababa yun kasi during the regular period, nung wala pa tayong pandemic, nag-average kami ng mga 75.
As of January 4, only 1.1 million new voters have registered out of the 4 million target. Due to the pandemic, COMELEC says people would rather stay home than register in COMELEC offices. COMELEC office hours are also limited from Mondays to Thursday, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Dahil sa pandemya, bumaba yung capacity ng COMELEC offices. Kung dati nakakapagparehistro tayo ng 10, 20, sabay-sabay, ngayon cut down na yan to like in some COMELEC offices, isa na lang ang pwedeng mag-transact at a time.
COMELEC spokesperson James Jimenez says they are now looking at extending operations to encourage new registration.
Pinag-aaralan ng komisyon yung pag-extend ng voting registration hours. Dati kasi 8 to 3 p.m. Ngayon, baka palawigin natin, pahabain natin, ano?
But for Camille Silvestre, a registered voter for reactivations, there's another reason for the low turnout.
Siguro nawala na lang din sila ng gana kasi bumoto ka o hindi, parehas lang yung parang wala rin nangyayari. Boboto pa rin kasi kailangan dahil sa barangay.
However, these first-time voters from Tondo are willing to brave it all just to be able to cast their vote in 2020 polls.
Kung boboto po ako, yung boboto ko po kasi yung mas mapapakinabangan sa bansa natin. Sawa na po kasi kami para pwede na kaming bumoto. So, at least meron po kaming, may ambag na po kami na kung sino yung alam namin karapat-dapat talaga. Yung ginagawa po talaga yung sinabi nila sa platform nila, hindi yung sa una lang.
Election officers have also asked the help of barangay officials for information dissemination. COMELEC is also using social media to educate more Filipinos. The agency assures the public that a system is in place to ensure that all health protocols are strictly observed. For News 5, Romy Lopez. We are One News.
House Democrats in the U.S. who will serve as prosecutors against former President Donald Trump's impeachment trial has delivered the charge to the Senate on Monday. The trial is scheduled for February 9. 100 senators will serve as jurors in the proceedings that could result in Trump's disqualification from ever serving as president again. Trump is being accused of having incited insurrection following the storming of the U.S. Capitol by his supporters last January 6. Senate Democrats will need the support of their Republican colleagues to convict Trump. He is the first U.S. president to stand trial after leaving office. Now time for the big stories in sports. A look at the game with Paolo Del Rosario.
Thanks, Robbie. The Samahang Basketball ng Pilipinas has officially announced the country's hosting of Groups A and C for the FIBA Asia Cup Qualifiers this February has been cancelled due to the ongoing COVID-19 travel ban. In a statement made by SBP President Al Panlilio, and we quote in full, the SBP wanted nothing else than to be one with the international basketball community as it attempts to bounce back in 2021 after taking a huge hit during the pandemic. We've exerted a lot of effort into our hosting of the upcoming FIBA Asia Cup Qualifiers, and this is why it is with great sadness that we announce it is no longer going to happen. We've constantly communicated with our partners from the National Task Force Against COVID-19, and they have informed us that there would be no exemptions from the current travel restrictions. We are working with FIBA to look for possible solutions to this situation. We look forward to the day that the SBP welcomes FIBA basketball to our shores again. End of quote. And that's it for the latest in the world of sports. Catch us later at 9:30 p.m. on One News and One Sports Plus. My name is Paulo De Rosario. This has been The Game. Back to you, Robbie.
Salamat, Paolo. Now, TV5 and Signal TV are welcoming their newest kapatid, TV host and former volleyball champ, Gretchen Ho. In a virtual media conference, Ho said she is excited to find growth in her hosting and production career here, her new home. Ho also believes that the Kapatid Network's news, sports, and entertainment content are a good fit for her and her training. She will be part of TV5's primetime newscast Frontline Pilipinas. She will also join One News. Gretchen is set to produce and host her very own public service program called Woman in Action. And starting Monday next week, she will join us every night right here on The Big Story. And we're looking forward to that. In the meantime, that wraps up today's Big Story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250. Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, you can visit our webpage, onenews.ph. I'm Robbie Alampay. We are One News. Good evening.